My favorite thing about Zombie Mode across the board is that it was just like it sprung forth from the Treyarch development team. It was not like made in a marketing lab where people were like, wouldn't it be interesting? It just was something they wanted to make and they made it. It was originally, there was this guy named Jesse Snyder. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was the one who was sort of like leading the charge. And he was making, like there's this parable about the stone soup. Have you ever heard this story? Like the soldiers come to a village and everybody's starving or they're starving and they start to make stone soup in the town. And people are like, well, I have a carrot. And they're like, yeah, I have celery. And like, I have a duck or whatever. And the village comes together and makes the thing. That was really how Zombie Mode came to be. So it was a beautiful thing. And then it just hit. I don't think anybody expected that it would. It just people were craving something that felt like very authentic in that world, I think, and it hit really well. Then the songs were part of that. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was big in the World at War world in my view, but when Black Ops came out, it was like a nuclear bomb of like reach. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. And it went so fast. Kevin Sherwood and Brian Toohey, who's the audio director at Treyarch, they're like dear, dear friends of mine. And I worked at Treyarch until 2009, I think. And then I went to work for Lexaflux, still working at Activision. The only song I actually sang as a Treyarch employee, I think, was Lullaby. Maybe the one. Those were the only ones that I ever sang when I still worked at Treyarch. Then I was across the parking lot and I would come back and like sing some of the songs, but it was all for funsies. Like it wasn't really that serious. We were just trying stuff. It was so easy. So this is what I say in my production, career as well. You gotta make it easy for people to help you. And it was so easy to just go in the vocal booth and play around. There was nothing, there was no pressure or stress. Kevin was stressing because Kevin's very, very, he really cares about things being perfect. But he doesn't put that on you, right? So like he was a great vocal director and he has great vision, but it was just really fun to like collaborate. People can feel it. They can sense it.
The zombie songs mean so much to me. And one of my favorite is Abracadavre from Ascension. What was the mindset going into recording for that song, and what kind of conversations came about when you were going to perform it?
So that one was quite unique because it was the first one I did after I had moved to Boston. So the timeline here was that I lived in LA and I worked, at Treyarch and Lexaflux. And then after I left Lexaflux, I took some time off. I recorded The Mighty and then I moved to Boston. 115 I recorded before I left. It was supposed to be, I think, something we did for another map. They wound up using it for Kino in Black Ops. I didn't actually know that, as far as I knew, I was really bummed. I was like, that song was so good. Nobody's going to hear it. I'm so sad. And then what happened. I'm glad they saved it for Black Ops so that more people got to hear it because that song is very special. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. But then I moved to Boston and they were like, we want you to do Abra. And I was all the way, it wasn't like the same process. So it used to be Kevin and I would just sit together and listen to it. And I'd be in the room with him, and we could sort of like, I could learn it. This time we had to do it remotely. And so he sent me like guide tracks. Originally, the version he wrote for me, I guess he did write it for me. He knew I was going to sing it, was way too high. It was like extremely high. And so I was trying to sing it and it didn't sound so great. And I went to a vocal coach and I was like, can you help me make this sound better? And it kind of got a little bit better, but I was like, and I got to the studio and I tried to sing it. And then Kevin was like, I need to write this better for you. He like went home that night and figured it out and made what he came back with.
Shout out Kevin.
He's beyond a genius. He's so incredibly good at what he does. I love working with him, but I don't think he enjoyed that experience. I think he stayed up all night and cried blood to make it work. But what I loved about it was that I got to have all these personalities. And also what I loved about it, so I was not a big nu metal person, but I remember when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this kind of has a Linkin Park vibe. And I started listening to a little more Linkin Park to try to understand the like vibe of it and found it pretty inspiring. So like I really enjoyed doing those songs because they opened up a whole world of music to me that I was kind of like not really paying attention to. I'm forever grateful for that. But it was so fun to sing in the studio. And this was one of the few songs, that one, that I had like a whole visual story in my head. You know, there was like a music video when I was singing it in the studio. And I remember like it's a heartbreaking song. It's really sad. There was like parts of it where it felt better to me when I sang it instead of like in little snippets, to like really sing it and let the emotion come through, you know, from the verse into the chorus. And I remember like I was like holding on to the music stand. Like it was like really emotional in a way that I hadn't had a chance to do before. And also there was those crazy voices, which were all directed by Kevin. Like there was no way I would have been able to do that without his, like, he would tell me to try crazy stuff and I'd be like, that's not going to work. And it would always work. I don't know how he knows.
What song was the most emotional and difficult one to do?
Beauty of Annihilation was actually really difficult because I was like going through personal stuff at the time. And I had done some I was behaving in a relationship in my life very like stupidly. Actually, the like story of like the beauty of destroying something, I would remember I was like, I had to face that I was personally like annihilating an important relationship to me. It was actually really interesting to bring that thought process into it. It's very personal, but I think that one was difficult. They were all difficult in their own different ways because of the fear of doing something that I knew a lot of people were going to hear. Like the first one was the only one that I ever just like was completely not thinking about it. The rest of them, I was like, somebody's going to hear this, so it better be good. And I had to put a lot of trust in the engineer and in the, you know, like, so that would be Colin, who did a lot, you know, he got the good takes, and Scott, who did a lot of the vocal editing and mixing and stuff like that. But those things were quite scary. Coming Home was terrifying because it was all screaming.
Ooh, that's another one. Ooh, yeah. I love that one.
Yeah, that one was a lot. And I loved it because it was like feral screaming, right? Which regardless of, you know, it's not normal metal screaming. That is literally me screaming my guts out, which was so cathartic. And then this like angelic singing on the other side of it. I really enjoyed doing that one, but it was pretty scary because I was doing something that actually I did not have a technique like anybody else, and I didn't know how people were and people are mixed on that one. I know, you know, it's just like so insane. But when I was a kid, like when I would I loved roller coasters as a kid. And so like, and I realized it was because I could just scream my head off on them. And I would go to like, you know, I would stand in line over and over again. The second that drop came, I would just like scream like I needed someone on Mars to hear me. It was like you don't get to do that every day. Just primal scream. It feels so good.
Facts. I completely forgot that song. I didn't forget it, but I remember. Fun fact, actually, the first time I heard that song, I hated it. It's so funny. It's so funny. Like the first time I heard it, I did not like I don't know why. But then I came back to it.
It's weird. It's weird. It's not like something you've ever heard before. It's not like there is a way you would do that screaming. And I might have even tried the technique that other people use now, and it probably would have sounded really badass. If I did the like classic metal growl, I would love to hear somebody who's really good at that do it. But I didn't do that. I just went in there and screamed it, you know, just screaming all my pain into a microphone. But honestly, that was more fun for me. So,
it made a great song. I love that song. And I love all the songs you've done. I listened to all of them before we did the interview. You've done, correct me if I'm wrong, you've done 14 of them?
I think 13 or 14. Yeah, I think it's 14.
So you've done so many of them. Another one of my favorites is Pareidolia. I love that. Oh my God.
That was the first one. Actually, I remember being scared of that one too because it didn't immediately make sense how I should sing it. And I listened to a bunch of other singers to be like, I would imagine like one of the fun things about the zombie songs too is it's just doing different styles and like learning is that will make you a better singer, by the way. If anybody is wants to know the best way to like really increase your range, just put on a singer that you think you can't sing like and try to mimic them. And don't stop until you get as close as you can. You will learn something new about your vocal cords every time. So on that song, I listened to a lot of Paramore. And I was like, how would Hayley Williams sing this? I didn't get anywhere near close. I mean, her voice is so magically beautiful.
The best.
Yeah. But I was very inspired by her style of singing. Like I always say, like Hayley Williams sounds like the saddest, most ferocious mouse of all time. Like she has this sweet, but it's like a tiny being with this like incredible voice, and it hits you in your everything. You know, it's just so powerfully emotional. Like you hear her singing, like immediately tears are streaming down your face, right? So I was like,
so good.
I was like, how could I bring that quality to Pareidolia, that like feeling of being small and scared, but also powerful, which was very much the like Samantha's vibe.